Welcome, fifth graders, to Module 4, Lesson 14. This is the concept development part of the lesson. Your objective today is I can multiply unit fractions by non-unit fractions. And I hope you're feeling a lot more energetic than my friend over here in the corner. Let's get started. Okay, problem number 1 says Jan had 3/5 pan of crispy rice treats. She sent 1/3 of the treats to school. What fraction of the whole pan did she send to school? Okay, so just thinking about how we're getting started, she has 3/5 of a pan. So that means she's not working with the whole pan to start with. So let's go ahead and think about how this problem is different than the one we saw last lesson. Last lesson, you might remember that Jan always had 1 unit fraction of treats. She had 1/2 or 1/3 or 1/4. Today she has 3/5. This one has a 3 in the numerator. So in this problem, we are finding 1/3 of 3/5 of a pan of treats. Before we find 1/3 of Jan's 3/5, visualize this. Now, if there are 3 bananas, how many would 1/3 of the bananas be? Well, 1/3 of the bananas would be 1 banana. It would be 1 out of 3. 1/3 of 3 bananas. Now, what about if I said, what is 1/3 of, these aren't bananas, let's say these are pens. What is 1/3 of 3 pens? Well, it would be 1. 1/3 of 3 of any unit is just one of those units. 1/3 of 3 is always 1. It doesn't matter what the units are. We talked about pens and bananas, but what about if we took that bananas away and we called these fifths? What about if we call them fifths? Then the answer would still be the same, that 1/3 of 3/5 is 1/5, just like we said it was 1 banana. Now let's draw a rectangular fraction model to prove our thinking. So it says Jan had 3/5 pans of treats. So let's first take our whole. We know that Jan is not starting with a full pan. We know that she only has fifths, 3/5. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines will give you fifths. And out of those fifths, she only has 1, 2, and 3 of those fifths. That's 3/5. And then it says she sent, out of these 3/5 that she had, 1/3 of the treats to school. So we need to figure out what 1/3 of 3 of the fifths are. So let's go ahead and break this up into 3 equal parts. Let's pretend that's equal and that's equal. And she doesn't send all 3 of the thirds. She sends only 1 of the thirds. So we're gonna use our blue and let's just mark 1 of the third, because see this whole row right here, that is a whole third. But she doesn't have any Rice Krispie treats here, so she obviously can't send what she doesn't have. So we're just counting the ones she does have. So in order to get that number, we have to figure out how many parts is our whole broken up into. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, and then we have another row of 5, 10, and another row of 5, which gives us a total of, get rid of this, a total of 15. So we have 15 equal parts in our whole. Now we're trying to figure out how many were sent to the school. Well, it's just these ones that are double marked. So 1, 2, 3 out of 3/15. Now, that's the answer to that. Now, if you look at where we started at 1/5, you might at first think that that's not the same number, but it really is, because remember, if we can reduce or simplify, if we have a number that goes into both the numerator and the denominator, and 3 goes into both 3 and 15, which gives us a new fraction amount of 1/5. And then we have a match. Number 2, Jan had 3/4 pan of crispy rice treats. She sent 1/3 of the treats to school. What fraction of the whole pan did she send to school? Okay, so what are we finding 1/3 of this time? We're finding 1/3 of 3/4. So let's go ahead and write that down. We're finding 1/3 of 3, and then I'm going to use the unit name instead of the fraction way of writing it and call it fourths. Just like when we were thinking of it as like bananas. Like, what is 1/3 of 3 bananas? We said it was 1 banana. So when we had 3 bananas and we said, what is 1/3? Last time you told me it was 1 banana. Therefore, we can just call it by its unit name, but it's not banana, it's fourths. So 1/3 of 3/4 is the same as last time, 1. But we're going to not be calling it, what did we call it last time? Fifths. It is now fourths. F-O-U-R-T-H-S. It's fourths. So the way that would look is like 1/4. Now let's go ahead and draw the rectangular fraction model and see what that looks like. Okay, so here you see we have the whole pan. And let's go ahead and draw our attention back up here. It says 3/4 of the pan. That's what she had. So let's go ahead and split this into fourths. And she had 3/4 of that. Maybe the cat or the dog got into the other fourth, or maybe she did. Okay, so right now we have 3/4 a pan. And then it says she sent 1/3, we're talking of the 3/4 to school. So we're going to take our pan and we're going to divide it into thirds. So I'm going to go like that and like that. So this represents 1/3 right here. This of course represents another 1/3, and this represents another 1/3, altogether being 3/3 the whole. But it says she only took 1 of the thirds, so I'm only going to double shade in that amount. Again, we could shade here, but no, we don't need to, because there is no Rice Krispies to take there. Those were already gone. So now we're gonna see how many parts was our whole divided into when we were looking at this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, another group of 4, 8, another group of 4, 12. So our total is broken into 12 equal parts. How many were taken to school? What is the 1/3 of the 3/4? Well, that's 1, 2, and 3. It's the ones that are double shaded. So that's 3/12. Now again, at first you might not think that they match, but if you know that 3 is divisible by 3 and 12 is divisible by 3, you'll have a new fraction of 1/4 and you'll get a match. Problem 3. We need to find 1/2 of 4/5. If this were 1/2 of 4 bananas, how many bananas would we have? 1, 2, 4. We had 1/2 of 4 bananas. There's a half and there's a half. That equals 1 whole. There's a half, there's a half. That equals another 1 whole. We would have 2 bananas. So let's not call it bananas now. Let's take all that away. And we're going to call it 1/2 of 4. We're going to call these fifths instead of bananas. Fifths. How many fifths are you going to have? 1/2 of 4 fifths. Well, it's going to be the same as the banana. You're going to have 2, not bananas, but fifths. Let's go ahead and draw a rectangular fraction model to demonstrate this equation. So we're looking for half of 4/5. Let's break our whole into fifths. That's 4 lines. And how many of them are shaded? That's your top number, 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That represents, oh no, I do not want to do that. That represents 4/5, that amount. And then we're looking for what is a half of this. So we're gonna have to take our pen and we're gonna have to cut it in half because we're looking for half. So this side is 1/2 and this side is 1/2. They're both a half, but we're only looking for one of those sides. So let's shade in this side. And now it's our job to figure out how many parts are in the whole. What did we split this into? Well, we split it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another row of 5. That's a total of 10. And how many are double shaded? That's going to tell us what 1/2 of the 4/5 is. That's 1, 2, 3, 4/10. Maybe looks a little bit like it doesn't fit with 2/5, but if we use our reducing and simplifying skills, we will get 2 goes into 4 2 times and 2 goes into 10 5 times, and bam, we've got a match. Okay, number 4 says 3/4 of Benjamin's garden is planted in vegetables. Carrots are planted in half of his vegetable section on the garden. How much of Benjamin's garden is planted in carrots? So we're going to write a multiplication expression to represent the amount of his garden planted in carrots. Now remember, a multiplication expression does not include the answer. An expression has the 2 parts but not the answer. So we're going to figure out what is 1/2 of 3/4. Or we can also say 1/2 of 3/4. I want to remind you that multiplication and of mean the same thing, so we can use them both ways. Now if I write this in unit form, I would write 1/2 of 3, and then I would write the unit name fourths. So I'm looking for what is half of 3. This one's a little more tricky because if I'm looking for what is 1/2 of 3 and I split it in half like I did with the bananas, then what I end up getting is 1 1/2 fourths. So that doesn't really feel very comfortable. So could we name 3/4 of Benjamin's garden using another unit that makes it easier to half? We need a unit that lets us name 3/4 with an even number of units. We could use 6/8. 6/8 is the same amount as 3/4, and 6 is a multiple of 2. What is 1/2 of 6? 3. So what is 1/2 of 6/8? It would be 3/8. Let's draw our rectangular fraction model to confirm our thinking. So I've already drawn our garden outline, and it says that we are looking for 1/2 of 3/4 because only 1/3 or 3/4 of his garden is vegetables. So let's make, oh my. Let's make his garden. We're splitting it into 4 parts. Not sure what he's got going in the other 1/4 part, but this is all veggie, veggie, and veggies. These 3/4 of his garden. Then it goes on to say that carrots are planted in 1/2. So I'm going to make half, split his garden into half. Continues like that. And can I get an orange for carrots? I'm going to shade in 1/2. So let's start down here. These are the carrot section. It says carrots take up half of his garden, so that's 1/2 are carrots. And in order to figure out how many he has total, we're gonna go ahead and count how many parts he has. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. How many are double shaded? 1, 2, 3. As we said prior, 3/8 of his garden are planted in carrots. All right, this problem, problem 5, we are gonna just start solving using the rectangular multiplication model. So let's go ahead and draw our total, our whole, and we're looking for 3/4 of 1/2. So let's go ahead and make our 1/2. Let's shade it in a different color. Here's our 1/2. Now we are looking for 3/4 of this half. So we're gonna have to break this up into 4 equal parts. And then we're gonna shade only 3 of those 4 parts. So let's go with this one, and this one. That's 3/4. Okay, so now we're gonna count out how many equal parts in our total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many are double shaded? 1, 2, 3. 3/8. How is this problem like the one we just did with Benji's garden? You might notice that it's similar. The fractions are the same, but when you draw this one, you have to start with the 1/2 and then chop that into fourths. When we did Benjamin's garden, we started with the fourths and then we chopped it into half. What did you notice about the answer we got? You may notice that it's exactly the same. That's because of commutative property. Okay, last problem, problem 6. Mr. Becker, the gym teacher, uses 3/5 of his kickballs in class. Half of the remaining balls are given to students for recess. What fraction of all the kickballs is given to students for recess? So this one we're gonna divide up a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and make a tape diagram, or maybe you know it as a bar graph, of the total kickballs. Okay, we're gonna call this total balls. It says that he used 3/5 of his kickballs in class. So let's go ahead and take the total amount here and divide it into fifths. That's 4 lines. And let's go ahead and just shade in 3 of those fifths. Those are the ones used in class. 3/5 for class. It says half of the remaining balls, if you look up here, half of the remaining balls are given to students. So the remaining amount here is 2/5. So we have 2/5 remaining. And it says half of those, half of the remaining balls were given to students. So we're going to be looking for 1/2 of the remaining balls, which is 2/5. Remember, we can also write it with its unit name, saying 1/2 of 2/5. So if we were now to take this information and we are going to insert it into a model, a rectangular model, we're looking for 1/2 of 2/5. Let's break this into fifths and let's color in 2 of those fifths. Okay, that's the amount remaining, and we're looking for 1/2 of that 2/5. So we have to cut our whole into halves, and then we're going to double shade the 1/2 of the 2/5. So now how many total parts is our whole divided into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 equal parts. And how many are double shaded? 2. And so we can divide 2 and 10 by 2. 2 goes into both 10 and 2. And we would get 1/5. That is your answer. And that is the last problem. Hope this helps in your homework. Good luck. If you need to, go ahead and go back and rewatch any of these problems for help. Thanks for watching.